Hudson Media Group studio. This is Talking Politics, and I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino via the Latino Spirit online magazine, and the weapon of mass disruption in Garden State media. Yes, it's me, Fernando Uribe, hoping you all had a wonderful start to 2023, ladies and gentlemen. Happy New Year. It's great to be back in the studio, and certainly there's always a lot to discuss. So let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. And folks, one of the things I do during my holiday break is sometimes, reorganize my house, clean, whatever. And it seems like as I was cleaning out my home office, I came across a lot of old documents. And it seems like documents is the word of the day. And one of the things that really upsets me during this holiday season was, again, the gross double standards that we see from the liberal media, not just nationally, but more egregiously here in the state of New Jersey. All we heard last summer and last fall were, indications that the 45th president was treasonous, was criminal, and that should be indicted immediately based on documents that were seized at his home in Mar-a-Lago in Florida, right? It seemed that all of the, moral superiority that the liberal media was sort of exhibiting during all of last summer and fall was on full display. Turn on MSNBC, you and the other 13 of its viewers nightly, and of course, you heard all the sanctimony. You turn on, CNN, and of course, with all of its 17 viewers nightly, of course, we're also being just as sanctimonious. But of course, here in the Garden State, we had awful news institutions, or at least the attempt to be news institutions, and of course, propagandists masquerading as journalists, not even saying a peep, really, about what just went on recently, but they always had an opinion last summer going into last fall. Because of course, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know, the 45th president of the United States, Donald Trump, seems to live rent-free in so many people's heads. Not just, annoying activists here in Hudson County, but of course, all the propagandists that occupy editorial chairs here in the state of New Jersey. And there's no shortage of them, ladies and gentlemen, whether it's Insider NJ, whether it's the Star Ledger, whether it's NorthJersey.com, whether it's NJ Spotlight News, the New Jersey Monitor. Take your pick, folks. And all of the propagandists who, again, could not shut up about how treasonous, how, what an unbelievable disrespect to the office of the presidency that was being exhibited by Donald Trump, right? Well, folks, over the break, we learned that the 46th president, right, Joe Biden, apparently had just as many missteps. Now, of course, we've learned that Attorney General Merrick Garland did appoint a special counsel to look into these documents that were apparently seized by the FBI. We all remember that raid in the middle of the night, right, against the 45th president. Of course, they made every news wire, and it got everybody on the left salivating all over itself because of what this meant. Well, again, folks, in the last, 96 hours or so, right, to start the new year, all I've heard is crickets. Now, of course, yes, because it's been inevitable, of course, the liberal media at the national level is now starting to go after Sleepy Joe because, quite frankly, he doesn't have an excuse. Now, what we didn't see was that sort of compassion and leniency bestowed upon the 45th president. But of course, let me just give you a little bit of a synopsis of what was discovered at Sleepy Joe's residence, right? Now, again, here's a timeline provided to you, not by Fox News, not by Newsmax. So if you're going to turn around and say, oh, well, there's Fernando just bloviating and, espousing conservative talking points. No, ladies and gentlemen, they all came from, for example, MSNBC. So some of the classified documents that are indeed in Joe Biden's possession include about a dozen pages found in an office that was used by Joe Biden at the University of Pennsylvania and a think tank, right? Kind of interesting to have a think tank named after Joe Biden when there's a lot of thinking going on anyway. But I may not digress. Again, these are documents that were found after he fulfilled his term as vice president during the Obama administration. But recently we've seen an unknown number of documents being found in Joe Biden's Delaware home, even in his Corvette. For a guy that talks about CO2 emissions and climate change and how harmful it is, well, Sleepy Joe doesn't seem to mind driving a sports car, which we all know emits a lot of CO2. I'm not against it. I give off CO2 all the time. But again, an unknown number of documents were found there. And of course, we've also seen the documents were discovered in a room adjacent to the garage itself at the Biden residence in the state of Delaware. But of course, MSNBC now and CNN seem to be going after the 46th president. Whether or not it's an agenda to make sure he doesn't run in 2024 remains to be seen. But again, folks, let me get back to the reality of why the media, at least, the mainstream liberal media nationally and here in New Jersey, continues to do us an immense disservice. It's no surprise, folks, that NJ.com is struggling, the Star Ledger is struggling, and that's why they're begging you for money. Open up your inbox on any given day and you'll see some sort of sponsored ad or spam coming from NJ.com, from the Star Ledger, or other news sites such as NorthJersey.com, vis-a-vis the Bergen Record, begging for money. Gee, why? I don't know. Well, maybe because they're laying off journalists because, quite frankly, they're not profitable anymore. And why aren't they profitable? Well, people aren't buying their subscriptions, whether it be paper, tangible newspapers, or the digital copies. Why? Because nobody believes them. And nor should you. Or why is, traffic down for websites like NJ Spotlight News or Insider NJ? Seems to me like the only person breaking news statewide is David Wildstein with the New Jersey Globe. Now again, irrespective of what you think about David Wildstein, I'm sure we all have an opinion about David, but I consider him a friend. He's a guy who, believes in my media brand and vice versa. Now again, you can take that for whatever you want. But folks, when it comes to reporting on this and the lack of consistency by the liberal media here in New Jersey, folks, it shouldn't surprise you, right? Propagandists masquerading as journalists include David Cruz, Tom Moran, Max Pizarro, certainly Jay Lassiter, Alan Steinberg, Bob Henley, Charles Stile, just to name a few. But of course, not a peep from them. And of course, you can check out muckrack.com and look up any journalist in terms of their recent work. I do that on a regular basis. And not a peep. Folks, it's literally crickets from all of the aforementioned when it comes to these documents that were found on the residence of Joe Biden. Because again, all we heard was that, hey, having these documents in your possession is treasonous, is criminal. Well, why are we using those adjectives to describe Joe Biden? Because it seems that now we're going to be discovering that maybe the Biden family had some ties with, the government of China, government of Ukraine, and it seems like money's been free-flowing, whether it's to Uncle, Sleepy Joe himself, or via his son, Hunter Biden, which we all know is a great citizen. But folks, again, the moral of the story is that, again, the lack of consistency that we see from the liberal media, nationally and statewide, shouldn't surprise you. Because again, when it seems like this is a clear and irrefutable and unequivocal double standard, you would think they'd be writing about it. But then again, that will require all the aforementioned journalists and all the aforementioned news sites, or lack thereof, to have standards to begin with. And we all know that they don't. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. Folks, just in case you were wondering, new episodes of the award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, via Blog Talk Radio at blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson, have resumed this month, and we'll start providing highlights later on this month here on Talking Politics via the Hudson Media Group. So you definitely want to stay tuned for those highlights. But right now, let's tackle some local stories for your consideration. And a shout out to John Hines via the Hudson County View for his excellent reporting on this story. As we all know, ladies and gentlemen, election season is in full gear in the town of West New York. My hometown, as a matter of fact. I'm a proud Memorial Tiger. Somehow I seem to be able to still wear my merch from back in the day, so must be doing something right. But the town of West New York is definitely in everyone's crosshairs, folks, for the next few months as we quickly approach Election Day on May the 9th. And as we know currently, former U.S. Representative here in the 8th Congressional District, Albio Series, and of course, a former mayor during the late 90s, early 2000s, has announced his candidacy, and certainly one of the current commissioners, Cosmo Cirillo, has also entered the race. There is some speculation as to whether former mayor Felix Roque will enter, but we'll find out later this week after he hosts a fundraiser at Las Palmas Restaurant in Uptown West New York. But certainly over the weekend, Commissioner Cirillo introduced a new member to his ticket titled West New York Forward. Now, Hiriam Gonzalez was revealed early this week as the fourth member of Cirillo's West New York Forward ticket. Now, he is a local coach and program coordinator, and he's been revealed again as the fourth member for Cosmo Cirillo's team. Now, in a statement put out this week by the mayoral candidate, quote, "The Gonzalez family has a long and rich history in West New York, and Hiriam has constantly demonstrated his desire to give back to our hometown and ultimately the nation. After graduating from Memorial High School as a proud Tiger, he selflessly joined the U.S. Marine Corps and has honorably served while rising to the rank of sergeant. As a proud alumnus of Montclair State University with a Bachelor's of Science in Accounting, Hiriam has spent the entirety of his adult life working with the field of finance, gaining a wealth of experience and knowledge. He has been a coach with our recreation basketball program for over a decade and currently serves as its program coordinator. He also continued to say that Gonzalez is also a volunteer with the town's Little League program and sponsored his own team recently, indicating that his commitment to service and strong financial background makes him an ideal fit for the Western Forward ticket. Now, according to his LinkedIn page, which you can find quite easily online, he also serves as the assistant finance editor in neighboring Guttenberg, where Cosmo Cirillo, coincidentally, is the town's business administrator. Now, Gonzalez is the first non-elected person to join Western Young Forward, with Cirillo announcing Revenue and Finance Commissioner Margarita Guzman, an outgoing assemblywoman in the former 32nd Legislative District, Angelica Jimenez, as his running mates going on during this year. Gonzalez added his own statement this week: "My many years of community service has been quite rewarding, and I feel blessed each and every day to positively impact so many lives. I'm overjoyed to be running with an individual that I have seen firsthand do all he can do to support the youth of our community and the town of West New York." Now, once again, former U.S. Representative Albio Sires, who coincidentally was also a state assembly speaker some years ago, made his candidacy official last week and is expected to reveal a ticket as soon as his fundraiser on Friday night, January the 27th, at the Great Cliff in Moonachie. As I mentioned earlier, former Mayor Felix Roque, who coincidentally won 2 terms in the early 2010s, has also teased a run for mayor in previous months and certainly is expected to make an announcement later this week. Folks, without question, this triple threat, this three-way dance, as John Hines has mentioned on his website, again, and as a devoted pro wrestling fan, I certainly appreciate the reference there by John. Folks, I think it's going to get very chippy, it's going to get snippy, it's going to get quite fickle. In the town of West New York, we have 3 very distinct candidates. Now, certainly, a lot of the people that lived during former Mayor Series' time in the late 90s, early 2000s, has probably either moved out of West New York or certainly has aged out and maybe aren't as involved in politics as he used to be. Doesn't mean that Albio doesn't have a good following, and certainly he remains a very visible candidate, especially with the backing of the Hudson County Democratic Organization. We all know that Cosmo Cirillo certainly is one of the current commissioners of recreation, and of course, he's still in a pretty good position to get across the finish line. We'll see what happens with Felix Roque. Again, he has a lot of money to spend. Whether or not that amounts to getting votes remains to be seen. But folks, I think ultimately this is something to watch out for, okay? We don't know who the remainder of Albio Sires' ticket will consist of. There are a lot of names out there. I don't want to engage in speculation. They'd be unfair to all of you. But what I will say is that Cosmo has a great chance, certainly, to be mayor if he can be able to, again, pull Angelica Jimenez and Margarita Guzman across the finish line. As we all know, in a commissioner form of government, all you need is obviously the top 5 vote getters, and certainly once they have their reorg meeting, deciding who's going to be the mayor. Now, certainly if you have a majority after the top 5 vote getters, then certainly you put yourself in an excellent position to be elected the mayor. I think Cosmo has a good chance. So does Albio. Does Felix Roque throw a wrench into everything? Certainly. I would argue it does a disservice to Albio and not so much to Cosmo. Whether or not that's the intent, again, remains to be seen. Sources all throughout the holiday season told us that U.S. Senator Robert Menendez apparently had a conversation with Felix Roque to make sure he would not run in the upcoming mayoral election. As we all know, Felix Roque will do what he wants when he wants. And again, that's not a slight, and that's not also a smear of the former mayor, but again, it's sort of what makes him very defiant, and to many West New Yorkers, a very likable candidate. So we'll see what happens, folks. May 9th may not be right around the corner, but time will be moving quickly in the township of West New York. So certainly this election is one to watch in the weeks and months ahead. Let's move into Jersey City, and once again, thank you to John Hines for his report on this story. Now, a progressive organizer by the name of Adrian Ganinda will apparently be jumping into the D2 Hudson County Commissioner's race in the next couple of weeks. Now, one of the things he's looking to do is potentially to set up a matchup in the upcoming primary against incumbent Bill O'Day, the longest-serving member of the Hudson County Board of Commissioners, formerly known as the Hudson County Freeholders. Now, Ganinda, in a statement put out this week, said, quote, "I am running for county commissioner because our people deserve an option at the ballot box. We deserve to have the working class represented not only by everyday people, but to also have our voices heard in every political process. I was born and raised in Jersey City," said Adrian, "and I've seen the toll it's taken on friends, family, and neighbors who were pushed out of our county because of how unaffordable it has become. We deserve to have our elected officials advocating to keep us in the place we've called home instead of selling us out for a pretty penny." Now, some specs here on Ganinda. He's a graduate from University during the class of 2020, and is currently the Special Projects Director for Voters for Tomorrow, New Jersey. He's also a former state delegate for the Progressive Democrats, ooh, joy, of Hudson County, and a former member of the Board of Delegates for the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey. He's also served as a field coordinator for the Hudson County Democratic Socialists of America's Right to Counsel campaign. Quote, activist Ricardo Rojas, again through the organization, said this week, Adrian is one of the most kind and selfless people. I'm sure he is. Doesn't mean that he's not intellectually bankrupt. Okay, but let me not digress. I've ever had the blessing to work with. He's a true organizer at heart who understands the injustices of the morally bankrupt system, and those who prop it up are not resolved by the charity of a single individual, but through building community, through solidarity as well. He is a wise man beyond his years, who I am confident will bring truly inclusive, a truly progressive vision for the second district so that every neighbor, no matter their place of origin or socioeconomic class, can call this place home now and in the years to come. Folks, let me tell you something about Adrian, okay? For anybody that ever reads about, democratic socialists or progressives, right? They mean well. The problem is that while their heart's in the right place, their heads are up their ass. And what I mean by that is, again, just subscribing to a lot of intellectually bankrupt rhetoric, okay? The idea, whether it's the Democratic Socialists of America, whether it's the Progressive Democrats of Hudson County, or the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey. I get it. They are a different brand of Democrat. And as we all know, folks, okay, this isn't the Bronx. This isn't, Queens, where progressive, sweethearts like the Puerto Rican princess, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, reigns supreme over there. Yeah, her rhetoric and all that nonsense and all the woke stupidity that she espouses, yeah, that works over there for some reason. It seems like the people in the Bronx and in Queens eat it up like, I don't know, Gerber baby food. But that's not the case in Hudson County, folks. There's still a very large voting bloc of middle-of-the-road, working-class, blue-collar Democrats who don't subscribe to all the woke nonsense that all these progressives do, right? The idea that they're grown adults, but they keep telling you that they failed high school biology when we know there's only two genders. Or the idea that a universal basic income is a good idea. Or sort of furthering the hysteria of climate change when we all know that while worrying about the planet is important, the idea that we're going to be underwater tomorrow and that Aquaman's going to be delivering our mail is just ludicrous. But that's some of the gibberish that people like Adrian peddle, along with the Progressive Democrats of Hudson County and also the Progressive Democrats of New Jersey. Now, folks, let me just say this about Bill O'Day. I've had the chance to interview Bill O'Day. He's always been a gentleman with me. But the idea that for Progressive Democrats of Hudson County or Democratic Socialists or Progressive Democrats of New Jersey, that Bill O'Day isn't more left of center than anybody on the Board of Commissioners is madness. I don't know what you're paying attention to. If you've seen some of the social causes, right, that Bill O'Day stands for. Again, I'm not bashing Bill, but he's pretty far left of the rest of the commissioners on that board. So when we talk about someone who is, again, the incumbent and the longest serving member on the Board of Commissioners, sort of institution, what's Adrian bitching about? That Bill isn't left enough for him? I don't understand. To be left of Bill is pretty much saying that you're just a devoted communist or a socialist. Bill's pretty far left. Again, that's not a smear of Bill O'Day. Those are just the facts. He advocates for a lot of social justice causes, some that I don't care for. But again, does that mean that he's not working for Hudson County, that he's not trying to keep spending down, that he's trying to make sure that taxes don't remain at a reasonable rate? Of course not. Bill's not one of these people that believes in printing money and acquiescing to woke nonsense. That's not Bill O'Day, folks. Okay? He's not conservative. Well, at least he's not conservative enough for me. But the idea that someone like Adrian and Anda is, trying to run because we need more inclusivity or a more progressive leader on the Board of Commissioners is just outright nonsense. Look at the voting record. Look what Bill O'Day stands for. Again, not a lot of what I represent or what I would advocate for. But again, I don't live in that part of Jersey City. But when it comes to, again, policies that work for that district, policies that work for working class Jersey Cityans, Bill O'Day's been that guy. You may not like him. You might think, oh, well, he's part of the establishment. He's been there too long. Folks, I get all those criticisms. But again, let's be consistent here about who Bill O'Day is. He's been a guy that's been fighting for working class families. He's a guy that's been trying to keep spending down at the county level. He's a guy that's, hey, when he's had to go into meetings with, again, current county executive Tom DeGees, he's stood up for working class families. So let's not get it twisted, folks. That, that Bill O'Day isn't progressive enough on the county commissioner board, because he is. Where this goes in the coming weeks and months ahead, folks, leading up to June in the primary, hey, remains to be seen. But I'll certainly be keeping an eye on this race, and that's for sure. Now, here's a story that really, I think, not only affects Hudson County residents, but New Jersey residents in general. And a shout out to Terrence McDonald with the New Jersey Monitor for his report on this story. Well, actually, specifically Sophie Nieto Munoz, wow, she's a total smoke show, by the way, for her reporting really on documenting something that, as a Second Amendment advocate, I was ecstatic about. Now, parts of New Jersey's newly implemented gun control law, which again are even more punitive and invasive, I mean, pretty much will become California, folks, were blocked last week by a federal judge who said that barring people from carrying firearms in certain places could lead to, quote, considerable constitutional problems. Now, the temporary restraining order issued by U.S. District Court Judge Renee Marie Bum blocks the section of the law that prohibits guns from being carried into public libraries, museums, bars, restaurants that serve alcohol, and entertainment facilities like stadiums, concerts, and theaters. Bum also barred the state from enforcing the law's ban on guns on private property without the property owner's consent and its prohibition on firearms in vehicles. In a 60-page decision, Justice Bum said, quote, the law essentially renders the entire state of New Jersey, quote, a sensitive place where firearms are prohibited. The deprivation of plaintiffs' Second Amendment rights as the holder of valid permits from the state to conceal carry handguns constitutes irreparable injury, and neither the state nor the public has an interest in enforcing unconstitutional laws, said Justice Bum, thankfully an appointee from former President George W. Bush. Now, Attorney General and woke resident himself, Matty Plakin, said in a statement he was, quote, disappointed by the court's ruling, which is inconsistent with the Second Amendment, which it's not, Matty. I mean, again, you have the law degree. I don't, but I know this. And will make New Jerseyans considerably less safe. But this temporary order is just that, temporary. Plakin said he plans to appeal as the case continues. See, folks, this is what pisses me off about a lot of the woke left and this administration in Trenton. What Plakin's doing via the governor, okay, by the emperor, is wasting taxpayer dollars on a lawsuit that's not going to go anywhere. The Supreme Court last summer made it very clear about the Second Amendment, thankfully. It just seems like the emperor, Governor Murphy, and the woke part of the legislature are just foaming at the mouth and salivating over restricting law-abiding gun owners in this state like myself. Okay, folks, this is the thing, all right? And this is what the woke left and all these social justice clowns and all these activists, right, that are all about gun safety. No, you're not. See, folks, this is the thing. Governor Murphy, State Senate President Scutari, Assembly Speaker Craig Coughlin, they get around-the-clock security. So when they go to a fundraiser, which, again, it's election season, so they'll be going to fundraisers multiple times a week, or any public event, they have access to armed security, whether it's the state police in uniform or in undercover gear, okay? Do you and I have that sort of protection? Of course not. So to make it more difficult for New Jerseyans, law-abiding New Jerseyans, to be able to protect themselves, I think is unconscionable. And it's funny because the governor put his hand on the Bible when he was sworn into a second term to uphold the laws of the state of New Jersey and to uphold the Constitution of the United States. Well, Phil, no offense, in case you didn't read the document, the Second Amendment makes it very clear. The words shall not be infringed. And the Supreme Court made that very clear last summer. But again, let me go on to this great story here. Now, Governor Phil Murphy's office is working closely with the Attorney General's office to, quote, correct this errant decision. No, it's not errant, Phil, unfortunately. While we are pleased that most of our concealed carry laws remain in effect, we are disappointed that a right-wing federal judge, no, it's not a right-wing federal judge, Phil. It's a judge that believes in the Constitution. See, folks, this is the problem with people on the left. When you interpret the Constitution as is, because that's what you're supposed to be doing, right? Interpreting the law, okay? Because that's the job of the judicial branch. It seems like I have to teach a civics class here for Governor Murphy and all the other woke activists in Trenton, okay? There's three branches of government, okay? The executive, legislative, and judicial branch, okay? The executive branch enforces the law. Legislative branch writes the law. The judicial branch interprets the law. That's what this judge did. Now, because you're getting a decision you don't like, Phil, and Nick Scutari and Craig Coughlin and the rest of the woke activists in the legislature, that's not my problem. Read the document. It makes it very clear, okay? Now, Democrats fast-tracked the new gun law last year after the Supreme Court ruling in June, which overturned a New York law that placed restrictions on who can obtain concealed carry permits. Murphy signed that bill into law, unfortunately, last December. Folks, again, elections have consequences. When Republicans go out to vote, like they didn't come out in bigger numbers in 2021, that's why we got a second term of Phil Murphy, subsequently signing a law like this into effect. Now, previously, New Jerseyans who wanted to carry a gun in public needed to provide a justifiable need before they could obtain a permit. Now, the Supreme Court's decision said government can bar firearms in, quote, sensitive places, though it declined to define them. New Jersey's law bans firearms, again, in a wider range of public and private property, which, again, include polling places, beaches, casinos, movie theaters, government buildings, courthouses, daycare centers, and schools, as well as hospitals. Now, New Jersey lawmakers have said they believe the law would face legal challenges, but they said they would work with the Murphy administration and their attorneys when crafting the bill. Well, clearly they didn't, because they just fast-tracked it because, again, they want to make a political statement. They want to infringe on your constitutional rights while, again, trying to be woke and trying to be down with all these social justice causes, which we all know is nonsense. Okay? The suit was filed by Ronald Coons, Nicholas Gaudio, and Jeffrey Mueller, along with groups including the New Jersey Second Amendment Society and the Firearms Policy Coalition. Again, the same day that the bill was signed into law. Now, gun rights advocates who filed the lawsuit say they are no longer able to carry their firearms in places that they could before the law was signed, in supermarkets, at church services, or while driving their cars. So, for example, because Mr. Coons regularly meets for breakfast at restaurants that occasionally have liquor licenses, he now leaves his firearms at home. Another legal challenge filed by the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs is still pending. Folks, shout out to these patriots, and shout out to them for trying to hold Phil Murphy and Matt Platkin accountable for what we all know is an egregious and invasive, again, when it comes to a smother of what happened with the Supreme Court last summer, okay? Do we want safety in our public places? Should we be able to have concealed carry permits in every public place? That's not what I'm saying. But again, restricting law-abiding gun owners in New Jersey and making their lives more difficult when, hey, guess what? When car thefts are on the rise, okay? And it's not racist, Governor Murphy, it just isn't. It's happening in a lot of slum areas of New Jersey, okay? Or whether home invasions are taking place. They are. Maybe not at a rapid rate, maybe not at the hysteria levels, but it's happening. Why are you trying to make law-abiding New Jerseyans and their lives more difficult to protect themselves? It seems like the woke left in Trenton is more concerned with preserving the rights of criminals and not of law-abiding New Jerseyans. But what else is new with the left, folks? They seem to cater to criminals, they seem to cater to not believing in law and order, and they certainly don't cater to believing in law enforcement. We saw that 3 years ago during the Summer of Love in 2020. We'll see where this lawsuit goes, folks, but again, if it goes to the Supreme Court, you know that Governor Murphy ultimately will take an L. And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the leader in independent media right here in Hudson County, the Hudson Media Group, please go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, as well as www.livestream.com/hmgtv. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group on Facebook, and of course, follow them on Instagram and Twitter. Check out my own social media, folks. Again, make sure you like Talking Politics with Fernando Uribe on Facebook, as well as my own Facebook as well. You can't miss me. I'm the handsome guy there with the just stellar-looking woman there, right? So you can't miss me. And in addition, folks, make sure you like Talking the Hudson, the 7-time award-winning podcast, which you can listen to episodes via www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson. New episodes are now airing on the page. You can check them out and download them from any PC, Mac, smartphone, or tablet, and take them with you wherever you get your podcasts. And always remember, ladies and gentlemen, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, it's always Talking Politics right here with the Hudson Media Group. I am New Jersey's premier award-winning journalist, top 100 Latino, via the Latino Spirit online magazine, and certainly the weapon of mass disruption here in Garden State Media. It's me, Fernando Uribe, saying, folks, have a great rest of your week. And as always, thank you so much for watching.